The 2024 racing season is super close and Mercedes will get their first chance to show that they figured out the right way to build cars for today's rules in Bahrain in just a couple of weeks. This comes after what team boss Toto Wolff said about how good the car looks when they test it on their computer. Mercedes fans really want to see if all the good things they're hearing will actually work on the real racetrack. And if it does work, they want to know who will be the faster driver, Hamilton or Russell. What Wolff said has definitely got all the F1 smart people talking. So the big question that nobody knows the answer to yet is whether Mercedes can do as well on the real track as they're doing on their computer tests. Toto Wolff and his team are trying to do something really hard in 2024, beat Red Bull and Verstappen. That's the team that completely crushed everyone else last season, even though it looks like Red Bull will probably win again in 2024, because the car building rules stayed the same and Red Bull's advantage seemed way too big for anyone to catch up. Mercedes is one of the teams that will most likely prove everyone wrong. This comes after what Wolff said recently about how the car acts on their computer test machine. Wolff sounded really hopeful, and some of his words were that the car feels like a real car for the first time in 2 years. This is something that fans have gotten really excited about, even though it doesn't promise anything for sure. That's because back in 2022, Mercedes also said that their computer testing gave them lots of good results. But then they showed up with one of the worst cars ever seen on the racing grid and in the team's whole history. But with all the information they've learned over the past 2 years and with all the advice the team has gotten from Hamilton during this time, it's very unlikely that the computer data would show anything wrong. When talking more about this topic, Wolff added that their computer test driver Anthony Davidson was driving in Melbourne on the computer, and he said this car feels like a real car for the first time in 2 years. Obviously, Wolff would love for this to match what happens on the real track, but they've seen in the last 2 years that this didn't always happen. You always have to believe that it's possible to catch up with Red Bull. You can't start a season thinking this isn't going to work. They saw last year with McLaren what a huge improvement they made with just one upgrade. They've signed a 2-year contract with Lewis, and they owe it to him, to George, and to everyone on the team to give it their best effort in 2024 and 2025. Wolff thinks it's possible. It's not an easy job to build a winning car after starting from the very beginning, and Mercedes is one of the few teams that are starting everything from scratch for the upcoming season. This means the car needs a new frame, new body parts, a new gearbox, and a new spot for where the driver sits. One of the main problems that Hamilton felt was stopping him from having a better feel with the back of the car was fixed. After building 2 completely different types of cars in the previous 2 years, Mercedes has all the information in the world to make a machine that could beat Red Bull in just 3 months of building time, even though Ferrari, McLaren, and Aston Martin will be right there competing too. The good thing Mercedes has is that they're getting advice from a 7-time world champion, and this time they're actually listening to it. Not to say that the advice Aston Martin gets from Alonso or Ferrari gets from one of the best driver pairs on the grid isn't good, but winning championships with different teams in different time periods does come with its own special benefits. And as Hamilton said, he's won many championships and knows what an F1 car needs to be fast. This is why the car will have a wider frame, a more squeezed-together gearbox, and a brand new design of the side parts, one of the most talked about and eye-catching parts of the previous 2 cars. The question is whether Red Bull has really reached the highest point of making their car better, and whether we're going to see close competition. This was kind of shown to us in the second half of last season, at least when cars were trying to get the fastest lap time for starting positions. Mercedes and the rest of the teams know that Red Bull's advantage comes from how fast they are during the race and how they manage to make their tires last longer. They do this by making the air flow perfectly from the front to the back of the car. This is one of the main things that Mercedes has worked on with their new side part design and the more compact gearbox. This should let more effective air reach with the back of the car. Besides this, the bottom of the car will also be completely rebuilt, and as expected, the special air channels underneath will be made as good as possible. This is being done under the leadership of James Allison, one of the smartest people in Formula 1 who has built some of the best cars in the sport's history, like the W12 of course. Rebuilding the bottom of the car will need a bit wider frame to fit all of the new designs that Mercedes has prepared for the W15. This shouldn't surprise us because they saw that by changing just the side parts and only the side parts in Monaco, the team got little to no better performance. Obviously, the drivers and team boss Toto Wolff are very sure that these changes will work amazingly on the car. They're so confident that all 3 of them decided to keep working with Mercedes for a longer time, after both drivers made sure they'll stay with Mercedes until the end of the 2025 season. Wolff is the latest one to sign a contract that keeps him with the team until the end of the 2026 season. When talking about what made him want to sign the contract the most, the Austrian said he's staying at Mercedes to beat Red Bull with Hamilton. Those who have driven on the computer test machine have told him that the 2024 car doesn't look like the car from the last 2 years. So if they give Hamilton a good car that he can trust, he can get back in front of everyone. But there's a little bit of drama that Wolff has created with what he said. Russell's name is missing from his statement, even though Russell had a really bad season in 2023, finishing 8th in the Driver Championship with only 2 times on the podium compared to his teammate who finished 3rd, scored 57% of the team's points, and had 8 podium finishes, writing him out of the championship picture if Mercedes manages to build a winning car is definitely selling him short. Even James Allison said that if the team succeeds in building a championship-winning car, both of its drivers will be able to compete with it. So not putting Russell in the statement is kind of like giving fuel to the younger British driver to prove that he's not brought to the team to be the second best driver. This is something that many people have already pointed out might be the case after what Wolff said recently when talking more about this topic. Russell has also got people debating whether or not we're going to see a similar situation to what happened in 2016. He added that 2023 has probably been the toughest season he's ever had mentally, bouncing back from missed chances, missed results, and mistakes. He thinks this is what happens when you push yourself really hard. He could easily slow down and drive at 99% of his limit. And he could sit there right now and tell you that he wouldn't make a single mistake. Probably when he went through his championship years in F2, for example, he probably wasn't being pushed as much as he's pushing himself now. He's purposely trying to push himself further and beyond. He's not happy with just being equal with his teammate in qualifying or whatever it might be. Or like in 2022 when they were very equal across the whole season. He wants to be ahead, and that's what he's pushing himself for. Russell has also added that at some point he felt like Wolff had a closer relationship with Hamilton than with him. According to the young British driver, this was to be expected considering all the success both people have had together with Mercedes. However, he also added that he's not at Mercedes to be a second-place driver, and even though Wolff has pointed out only Hamilton in his statement about fighting Red Bull, we shouldn't forget what he said a couple of years ago. When Mercedes has a winning car, the respect between Russell and Hamilton will be thrown out the window, and it will be every man for himself in the team. Either way, to get there, Mercedes needs to build a car that would be kind of like copying Red Bull in their own way. This is why the team might have chosen a different design for the side parts than what they've done in the previous 2 years. While it's very hard to make guesses before the car has actually driven on the ground in Bahrain, Mercedes hasn't been this excited about the car's improvements in quite some time, and that is one of the key reasons why we should expect a different beast to come out of the factories in Brackley. With this in mind and with the latest news from the computer testing, do you think that Mercedes has what it takes to challenge Red Bull? Let us know in the comments below.